preparing to live stream the meeting.
Where are you live streaming? Where's this actually going?
We're going to YouTube. We had like an unlisted link.
Oh, that you're gonna record to.
Yeah, that we're gonna upload to now.
Sweet.
Preparing to live stream the meeting. Oh, that is me. That is me from 20 seconds ago. I am going to turn that off. Yeah, this is anyone watching right now. This is probably some like Brechtian, the mask. This is what's happening behind the scenes. Hi, everyone. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Dang, and I am the film liaison of the UBC Film Society for the year 2020 and 2021. I'd like to welcome you to our inaugural event of the Norm Selects series. We couldn't have any in-person classes until January, and even then it's kind of, So we decided to bring the experience, the cinematic experience of our Norm Theater to you guys at home. We got some great questions from viewers, and we will have time to get to all of them. And I will ask everyone who has kindly entered the chat to mute themselves just very quickly. There's a little mute button below here. And for this first portion of the interview, because it's just going to be kind of, us talking. And when we take audience questions, we ask you to, raise your hand using the button right next to the mute button below. And you'll get to ask our guests your questions in person. So now I will introduce our very special guests to you. First up, we have Warren P Sonoda. He is a BAFTA and Emmy-nominated filmmaker. Do you like these intros where they're just like listing off?
No, I hate it. You can just say I made the movie Things I Do for Money. I think.
Yeah, he made the movie The Things I Do for Money. He's also directed Cooper's Camera, Swearnet the movie, Five Girls, Ham and Cheese, among others. What, Warren? What is the what number is Things I Do for Money in terms of your features? Like, is it?
So Things I Do is thankfully my 11th feature. I've been on a good run up until now, and in Canada, it's few and far between where you're able to kind of go out and make a movie. But I've been able to do it with some great people, great teams, 10 times before. But lucky 11, Things I Do for Money.
Yeah,
I think it's my best film I've ever made, so I'm really happy to have been able to do it, especially with these gents here.
Yes, and that brings us to Maximilian and Theodor Aoki. They are brothers who have been classically trained for 12 years, and they perform cello together. They arrange and perform contemporary pop music on the cello as Versa Cello, and they are the stars of Things I Do for Money with their dad, Ed, who is here right now with us.
Woohoo!
Michael, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yes. And you guys also scored the film too, right?
We also scored all the original.
Yeah. And you guys are in college too as well, right?
Yes, we're both in engineering at McMaster University.
UBC. Engineering at University of British Columbia.
I do not support university rivalries. I believe we are all brothers and sisters, and in between in this, we're all struggling. Anyway, so yeah, the first question is, somebody's just getting through. Admit.
Excellent. Oh, and I will also introduce Ed Aoki, who's the father of both Maximilian and Theodore.
Oh, did I not introduce Ed?
Uncle.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Okay.
I don't want to introduce just Jimmy either. Just Jimmy scares the shit out of me. So.
Scares the shit out of me.
Just Jimmy. As you can tell, this is going to be a very, kind of relaxed, kind of conversational sort of interview. So yeah, we welcome everyone. I think I saw somebody like enter the chat, but then unmute.
Ivan's in. Ivan's gonna be hanging out with us.
Oh yeah, Ivan.
Yeah.
Hi, Ivan. Are you doing okay, Ivan?
Hi. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Hi. And then we had somebody else, I think, that was logging in, but now Now I don't know. Anyway, so yes. I guess I can ask Warren a question first.
Sure. Maybe Ivan, if you can mute your microphone. Yeah, thank you, sir. And unless you want to ask a question, just speak up.
Okay. Yeah.
But go ahead.
Oh yes. So Warren.
So my
Oh,
was
okay.
about because I saw in your Instagram page that you were what was it? You sent your film to very many festivals in San Francisco, and that was pretty cool. So the thing is, I'm actually not really either Canadian or American, so I don't know if like I'm trying to also what's this thing? Send my movies to festivals. So my nationality, like, does it like is it a problem that I'm not American or Canadian?
It's not a problem to me at all, and it shouldn't be a problem for festivals accepting international work. And I think now more than ever, we need stories from around the world, especially with different perspectives and representation. So, Ivan, I don't know where you're from, but it's
I'm Peruvian. Yeah.
Persian. Sorry.
Peruvian, yeah. I'm from
Peruvian, okay, wow, excellent, and shout out to Peru. But most festivals will list their criteria, and usually for the bigger international festivals, they accept international work. So it shouldn't affect your eligibility. And certainly in Canada, there's some great film festivals. In Vancouver, the Vancouver Film Festival. We premiered at Whistler. Which is right beside Vancouver, and they all accept international work. So
that's great.
Yeah, so does like TIFF and everywhere else. But I mean, the big thing is with your work, don't get too discouraged when festivals say no. I mean, we had a pretty fortunate run with Things to Do for Money Festival-wise pre-COVID, before COVID hit. But for every one festival that said yes, we had 10 festivals that said no. So don't get too discouraged with how people respond to your work. Just keep making it, getting out there.
Look at you guys now.
Thank you.
You guys got like great reviews on all the services and that sort of stuff, and it's
so far so good.
So to those 10 festivals.
Yes, thank you for the support, especially premiering at Whistler, and Theodor and Max were fortunate to be able to go down to Lafayette, Louisiana, and go to the cinema on the Bayou for the American side to see how Americans responded to the festival. So
the festival circuit is such a cool thing to experience, just as
sorry, Ivan, do you mind muting your microphone?
It's unmuted, right?
No, mute it. Press mute. Thank you very much. Excellent. Go ahead, Max. Now you mute yourself, Max.
Yeah. So what the coolest thing about the festival experience too is being able to just kind of experience a different culture and different place that kind of you go to. And I think like Whistler was super cool. We've never been there before, and to have like this kind of almost like a ski town sort of place that so many filmmakers are coming to is so cool. And Lafayette, Louisiana was such a different vibe, and amazing cooking, and such a cool downtown vibe, and it was fun to be around.
Tell us more about Lafayette, Louisiana. I want to learn more about.
Well, it's actually one of those towns that has such a deep, rich history. And Pat Mier and Rebecca there, who run the festival, basically open their house every year to run this festival. Like the first night we got there, we arrived in Louisiana late because we had this different connecting flight and everything. And there was no restaurants open at like 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night. So I called the festival director, Pat Mier, and he's like, "Oh, Warren, just come by the house. Here's the address." And me, Max, Theo, Abby Fettergreen, myself, Gary Nolan, the co-writer, we ended up at Pat and Rebecca's house eating Creole Cajun food and talking about film. And there was these amazing Cajun musicians that would play. And then Theo was like, "This is the first time." Was it the first time you were you went to the States or flew to somewhere in the States?
Yeah, because we had only been to like Massachusetts, I think, before.
Right.
For an art gallery when we were like super young. That was the first time we actually had flown to the States.
And what did you actually think of Lafayette when you got there?
It was like similar to it's like similar kind of same sort of like culture and stuff, but it was just like slightly different, especially I guess because it was in Louisiana too. It was like a lot of people spoke French, which was actually kind of like similar to Quebec.
Well, also like when you leave the airport too, there's these two huge signs. One of them says, I think it's like the South's nicest city, or the kindest city, and the other one was something like Forbes top city to start a small business. And you got that vibe from the city. They just are super nice people.
And then you'd see signs that say, "Don't feed the alligators," because Louisiana is basically swampland, and like the main university downtown is the centerpiece of it is this amazing swamp that they have in the middle of their campus with alligators in it. So it was one of those really very Creole Cajun places to go.
It's true.
No, that sounds very romantic, No, but just like a film festival in somebody's house, like that's just like, I really like that. Okay, so yeah, I have a bunch of questions for you guys. I'm gonna start first with you, Warren.
Okay.
So you wrote the screenplay for this film with Gary Nolan, who's also in the film.
Yeah, he has this is the low budget film world, and trying to make something on a shoestring is you corral every single person, including the parents of the actors that are starring in the movie, and the co-writer of the script, who I've actually cast in music videos that I've done ages ago, but he hasn't been in front of the camera in a while. So Gary Nolan actually makes an appearance at the Turcotte pharmacy shootout scene. And he was great. But yes, what's the question?
Yes, that was the preamble to the question. So I was wondering, when you were like the initial kind of stages for the screenplay, was it always cellists? I mean, like when you were kind of starting the initial stages of this film, were you just banking on finding, like a pair of really talented cellist Japanese Canadian brothers, or was this movie going to be about like flute players or something? Or like
Gary and I came up with this idea for specifically Japanese Canadian brother cello playing Hamiltonians, and we just lucked out to find them. They were just I mean, the origin of the story really came from Gary knowing Max and Theo through their mom Alicia, because they used to teach together at Delta, right? That's kind of where the connection was. And Gary had seen Max and Theo perform live, and he told me the story of this one concert that you did for the school. And he said that at the end of it, everybody stood up and gave you a standing ovation. And it's the type of crowd that wouldn't necessarily like classical music, certainly not cellos.
The rough and tough crowd.
Yeah, it's just not that world, and they were able to captivate this, predominantly teenage audience to the point where the entire audience just erupted in cheers. And I'm like, oh, that sounds really cool. They sound great. And then they started to release these videos on YouTube. They did Counting Stars. They Ed Sheeran cover, and and I saw it, and I'm like, these kids are great. They're awesome. And they've always kind of been on my radar that way, to the point where like I come from music videos. I used to direct music videos when I was growing up. When Gary told me about them, I think the idea was maybe to do a music video with them or something, even though I'm not really in the music video game anymore. It's something that, would have been interesting. And then I kind of messaged them, they messaged back, we were going back and forth, and then I didn't talk to them for 2 years because I got busy. But I always remembered them. So when Gary and I started putting the script together, we certainly were looking for ideas, and the Aokis kept coming up as like, what if we made a movie around these two and centered it around cello playing brothers from Hamilton that get into a bunch of shit. And we just didn't know what the story was. We didn't know the ins and outs and the details. But yeah, we definitely started with Max and Theo. You couldn't reverse engineer it. I couldn't come up with a story about Japanese cello playing brothers from Hamilton and then try to audition people. It just, the only reason why the movie exists is because Max and Theo were foolhardy enough to say yes to doing it.
I didn't realize that you guys had, like, you know, kind of known of each other before that. So yeah, that's really cool. How he kind of Warren and Gary kind of, you know, knew you guys and kind of built a script around that. And so in the before this interview, me and Warren were kind of, you know, we were talking on Zooms like this about, you know,
Michael and I have become best friends.
Yes, we have.
You came to our cast and crew party. It was great.
Best friends. And we talked a lot about kind of the genre of crime, and this film does a lot to sort of, you know, subvert audience expectations in, like, you know, so many ways. And I just wanted to know, like, what was so important for you, Warren, to bring Japanese Canadian protagonists and Black, you know, characters and Hamilton, Ontario into the crime genre?
Well, it started with just my acknowledgement that this is my 11th film, but the 10 films prior to did not include a Japanese Canadian lead actor in anything that I've done. And I just thought how that's a problem. That's, you know, how I wasn't able to figure out how to put together a production that I was able to tell a story about Japanese Canadians. And I mean, it just kind of, it all came together organically. I mean, Max and Theo just happen to be Japanese Canadian. Ed happens to be Japanese Canadian. But because I was starting into kind of my mid-career as a filmmaker, and I had a little bit more knowledge and experience putting these things together, I just felt more empowered more than ever to be able to go, no, this is what I really want to do. Because maybe 10 years ago when I was making movies, I might not have felt I would have had the directorial power and financial power to say, I'm going to cast two unknown kids that have never acted before in their lives and put them in the center of a crime drama. I don't know if I was prepared for that 10 years ago, but now I am. And certainly the crime genre appealed to me always. I'm a fan of, you know, Fargo, the Coen brothers, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Snatch was a great film. Heat, Michael Mann, all his films. And in Canada, we have had a good history of doing crime films and genre films, but I've never seen it from a Japanese Canadian perspective before. It's just, this film's never been done. So part of it was the challenge of doing something completely original and unique. And the other was just the fact that my two leads were Japanese Canadian, and this is the story that I wanted to tell. But I think, you know, what was really telling was when Ed came on board on the film, and Rhett Morita, who plays Max and Theo's actual, you know, narrative father, story father, is the fact that there's not a lot of Japanese Canadian actors, simply because there's not a lot of Japanese Canadian films. So when I was able to work with Max and Theo and Ed on this, what I'm hoping is it sends a signal that you can create an entire film around a family that's never been seen before, whether they're Peruvian, you know, like Ivan is Peruvian, or me as a Japanese Canadian, and there's going to be people that are going to be interested, because universally what these kids go through in the movie, I think anybody can really relate to, you know.
And to Theodor and Max, I was just wondering, you guys, if it was my understanding, this was the first time you guys had really acted, right?
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah, I'll hit with that. We've played cello. I guess we began practicing individually around 16 years ago, when we were very, very young, and started playing together about 5 years ago. And that has been our only real experience in any type of arts. Never did any drama in high school, or not really part of any societies.
Why didn't you do drama? Were you just not interested in it? I've never asked this question either. Like, why didn't you do?
I don't personally like it.
Okay.
I'm not a fan personally of drama classes.
Right.
I did visual arts.
Okay.
Yeah, because we were both in visual arts because our parents, like our dad and our mom, that's
as witnessed by that
artwork.
painting.
That's our mom's artwork in the back right there.
But also, like, even in that room too, there's artwork on every single wall. Like we're surrounded by art all the time.
Done by your parents.
Yeah, so we just kind of went into visual arts, and after we got our one art credit, we kind of just focused on the STEM stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we would do like
That's so funny because once I got my one math credit, I didn't do math again.
That is me.
Yeah.
It's fair. But I mean, apart from, like, fun, like 5-hour film challenges, and we'll do our own music videos for Versacello too, but like it's just kind of like following each other with the iPhone. This project was by far the first time we've been part of something professional and felt very industry like, with big cameras and big lights and multiple days of shooting and big schedules, and which is so cool to witness. And definitely didn't expect it, even when Warren said outright, this is going to be X amount of work, and then this is what you have to learn, this is what you have to do, and all we really heard was, oh, we're gonna be in a movie, that's cool.
With all like the schedules and like all the work and stuff,
Which was amazing.
It would have been, of course, but it would have been like a massive experience even without having to act for the first time. So that was just like the icing on the cake right there.
I think you were kind of thinking, oh, we're going to be in one part of the movie. Maybe we'll play the cello in a scene. And then you got the script, and then you're like wall to wall, you're in the movie the entire film.
Yeah. And not only that too, I know that we feel very, very fortunate in this being our first kind of project to work on that's acting related, because it's not just like we're coming in for the days that we shoot our parts and then kind of leave and then wait for the the actual premiere for cast and crew. Like, we've been a part of the team and the project since day one and seen it every step of the way, even if it's not really like our scenes. I love kind of coming onto set and just seeing how Warren does things and how the lighting crew works. And so it feels like so much more than even just acting and composing. It's just being part of a project that's
technically you could have probably angled for an executive producer credit, and you'll probably get one in the next film, but yeah, we didn't want you to feel all that special that first time out. Keep you humble. Because not everybody gets to be on the front page of the Hamilton Spectator Go section, so we had to keep you in line. This first
want the ego to be too inflated, right?
No, yeah, because look at them; they're out of control.
They're out of control. They play cello so well, and they're good at acting too. Like, well, what was one of your guys's like biggest challenges when it came to acting for first time? Because Warren gives you like a lot of the moods that you have. Like, you laugh, you cry, you scream, you have all the big emotions. So what? And you can answer this, Ed, too. Like, what was kind of the biggest challenges into getting into characters? Because your guys' character traits, Eli and Nick's character traits, aren't just like they're good at cello. They have to, it really is like embodying another person. And so what were the challenges of that?
One thing we were really fortunate with was that the parts were written for us. Like, when they were written for us, they're kind of based on
and you guys.
They're kind of based on us, because they're based on Gary Nolan, the co-writer, his sons, who are similar to us, same like age difference, actually maybe like one more year, and similar temperaments. So it was kind of natural for us to get into that.
And one thing that was super made the process a lot easier than if we were to jump into a random role is that so much of our heavy parts, that we had to be angry, that we had to be sad, that we had to be so many very expressive things was towards each other. And a lot of those scenes were like inter-brother, kind of how that relationship's unfolding, how you see it on screen. And that's so natural to work with somebody that also happens to be your brother. And so, you know, there's no like hidden vulnerability there or anything. And we have no problem being very real with each other and having those tensions and exploring very intimate moments.
I think the bigger stretch was actually Ed, you doing just Jimmy, because it's you know, Gary and I did really write. We tried to write to Max and Theo's strengths as people, right? So Eli's introverted, kind of keeps to himself. His arc is about breaking out of the shell that he's in, and that's kind of where Theo was at in his life. He was, you know, he was quiet. He was quieter than Max. And then Max's character's Nick is this sort of, you know, going through this moment of his life that's all messed up, and he's all over the place, and you know, he's kind of like getting into different parts of the criminal underworld, which is not really Max, but Max is more outgoing, and he, you know, he does that. He does have that thing that Gary and I really responded to, especially when they were auditioning. So we started writing specifically for each character to complement Max and Theo. But Ed's character is completely fabricated. Like it's like we didn't have Ed in mind at all when we wrote it. And again, Ed's never acted before either. You want to talk about that a little bit, Ed, in terms of like?
Yeah, that was. I mean, it really helped when you couldn't find someone. And you said, "Hey, we want to try the Just Jimmy part," because it helped the fact that Just Jimmy is a really cool character, right? So it was a lot of fun. Like, wow, yeah, I want to try. And then later on, you're thinking, why did I say yes? Because I have no clue what to do here. And you know, and I guess one terrifying thing was for you. I think it was just a deadline, but the first reading for me was terrifying.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I walk in there, you know, before they go, yeah, I'm going to be in a movie, right? It's going to be with the boys, and it's going to be fun. And I get to be this cool guy. And then you walk in there and you realize everyone here knows what they're doing.
Yeah, we did this, Michael. We did this, what we call a cast read through, where you know, about a dozen of the actors from the script, from the production get together, and all the heads of departments. So there's like 20, 30 people in one room, and yeah, it was your first read through.
I actually had that feeling of fight or flight, right? I've got to run out of here really fast. And the reason why I'm on Michael is just because the happenstance is that, well, I drive Maximilian Theodor around, so that's my big connection. But when I thought, okay, you know what, and have no acting training except for, you know what was really fantastic was Lauren Norden. She gave Max and Theodor a crash course over a few days, and I think she gave as well Max, Theodor, and Rhett and I like a half-day crash course, and just really listened really intently to what she said. And actually, she gave us some really great exercises where to sort of mobilize. One was like, hey, read your line, and before you read it, write down or think about how you're responding to the other people's reactions. And so what I got from that was, you just got to be real. You can't pretend, hey, I'm someone from The Godfather or something like that. You just have to be real. It helped the fact too that it was a Japanese Canadian film, because what I drew on, and I was talking to Warren about this earlier, was my older generation of my own family, who I really admired, like my uncles on my dad's side. And some other older Japanese, like the old school,
stoic Japanese,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. And then the ones that went through like heck or hell through the internment, but you never saw that in their face. Never saw in them that sense of feel sorry for me.
Yeah.
In fact, what I found was interesting, Warren, is that it wasn't really the Nisei who talked about the internment and the injustice of it. It was the Sansei who did that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The Nisei would just.
Nisei would never talk. My mom and dad would, unless they were prompted, unless I actually talked to them about it. But this is the table read that Ed's talking about.
It was Michael. For me, it was terrifying because I looked around the room and going, everyone has a reason to be here. I mean, my sons are here because they play the cello and Warren really likes them. everyone else, everyone knows what they're doing.
There's the Japanese contingent with Rhett, Marita, and the Aokis there.
And I thought, wow, what right do I have to be here? So really, I drew on those lessons that Laura Norden showed us, but just be real. And the other factor that comes in play, this is me talking a lot here, because where I work at is a school for boys who are real problematic. And in fact, they're problematic because they give their teachers a really rough time. Like if you bullshit to these guys, their bullshit meters so well tuned that they'll say bullshit and then they'll do something stupid, and you've got to handle that. So I found like teaching in other places, but colleges or university, you could say things and people go, that's interesting. But if you're not quite 100% sure, it could fly over. But with these guys, no, you can't. You've got to be really real. So that was something I drew on as well too. And other than that, but really, what kept it going was it was a cool character, and I got to shoot a gun, so that was a lot of fun.
Well, and one thing also that you needed to do was in one scene learn Japanese enough to speak Japanese, and you know.
Very good. Can you say that again? この育児なしが。この育児なしが。I think the E is too strong.
That's Hide Ishii, who is one of our 3 Japanese consultants that worked with Ed and Rhett Morita for like a month.
Yeah, really nice guy. I had a lot with worked a lot with Alina Miyakami, but she was great too. But these guys are so nice, but they terrified me too, right? Because they could they know the language, so they could hear it. So I had to like try to hear Japanese and try to pronounce it from a different part of my mouth. And I thought, I could do Japanese because I could heard my parents speak it, but I never spoke it myself. And realizing, no, I can't speak it. And I have a whole different way of talking, and they had to actually train me in that. And that was a lot of work. And they were really good because they didn't let anything slip by at all, right? And so we try to Rhett and I try to say with Warren, hey Warren, Japanese Canadians, they probably have a really bad accent. No, won't fly.
It's funny, even trained actors, when they get a script and they have to either do an accent or actually speak another language, that's what terrifies a lot of professional actors. And Ed and Rhett, having come from different backgrounds, Ed a teacher, Rhett a cinematographer, never acted before. It's like, that's like the worst thing to do to them. Because it's hard enough if you're a professional, and then to do it as just a beginner, it's even more sort of daunting. So hats off to you for doing that.
Yeah, I know. And I thought when you first said I'd speak Japanese, that'd be a few phrases once in a while.
Right, because our parents speak sort of that BC slang Japanese, which is not real Japanese. They kind of just make up words.
Yeah.
Like for the longest time, I thought the word, they would call me Yoshuharu when I was acting up. So I thought, okay, Yoshuharu, that's a Japanese word for someone that's acting up or being a pain in the ass or something. But Yoshuharu was a kid in their internment camp named Yoshi, who was just a shit, who's just would just be a troublemaker. So they just used his name as a signifier for being a troublemaker. And that's basically the Japanese that I was learning, was like just bits and pieces of like things that were real.
That child. R.I.P. to that child. Wow. Oh man, when my name becomes a verb, oh.
I know, but as I was growing up as a kid, all I hear is Yoshuharu, Yoshuharu. And I'm like, okay, I'll stop doing what I'm doing. And it really is not Japanese at all. It's just someone's name. It's like yelling to someone, Aoki, Aoki.
Sometimes that happens.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, don't end that. Don't pull an end. Oh, Alicia laughed at that.
Okay. Got a laugh from Mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Alicia. Anyway, so my other question that's here is that, music is a very central feature of this film. You know, the whole climax of it revolves around, you know, a cello performance toward the end. And one thing that really stuck out at me when I was watching this film is there's kind of this tension between diegetic and non-diegetic sound. And so I'm thinking of the scene where Eli, you know, he uses the money that he gets to buy a new set of headphones. And when he has the old set of headphones, it's like really shitty audio and you can hear it. But when he like throws out his old headphones and puts on his new headphones, then, you know, the soundtrack is clear.
I'm so glad you said that because no one's picked up on that yet. And
Really?
We worked so hard in the mix. We worked so hard in the sound mix to achieve that moment, and no one's actually commented on it yet. So I'm glad it's
Really?
noticeable. Yeah.
Wow, it's in my agenda and everything. I'm glad I could, you know, bring something new to, you know, the monotonous press circuit. I'm also thinking about the scene where Nick and Eli go busking, but it's not really busking. It's secretly, you know, a stakeout to help Alexi and Brenda. And so, you know, the cellos are kind of like both building up suspense, but they're also, you know, part of the character's world because they're busking and playing cello in this like empty street. So I was just wondering, what were the conversations like between Max and Theo and Warren and whoever else may concern about scoring the film? And, you know, yeah, Warren,
well, I mean, you know, I always like asking Max and Theo this because their interpretation is different. For me, it was like, I need this done, get this done now. But like, Max and Theo, what was it like when you first got the call for this and you realized that your music won't just be a small part of it, it's basically the thing of the movie?
I think definitely like because we got brought in as cellists, and we are very comfortable with the cello. Of any part of the movie, even the one part that's not really acted at any point in time, other than, you know, Warren saying, "Okay, smile, look left, look right."
Look at Alexi. He wants to steal the painting. Oh, he's stealing the painting. React to that.
Oh, he's gone. It would be the cello sequences, and where, you know, we're just kind of doing our thing. But I think even when we kind of got brought on, we knew that we were going to be doing some of the songs that we usually play, some of our originals that were free to use. There needed to be that sequence at the very end of the climax of all these narratives coming together, that the two brothers are playing the cello, the heist is happening, shootout's happening, finding Tosh is happening, everything's happening at the same time. And we originally had a 2 cello performance there that was going to be something that was public domain, that was free to use, that was a well-established piece. And we had the Vivaldi double cello concerto for that, which would be well known to any cellist. But at the same time, is also like we were brought on as a cellist for the film. Like we're here to help make the movie with that music, and it's just not going to make sense if we use someone else's piece. So then we're like, now the conversation began.
It was the start of their ego, Michael. That's the start of the Max and Theo ego train of like, no, Vivaldi not good enough for us.
The accent even came out for those moments too, 100%.
A lot of it was even like this timing, like the Vivaldi. It might have fit if we had played all the movements, but there would have been like some way to like merge them together, and it got complicated. So eventually, like, it just said like, hey, why don't we just like score it? And like, I don't think we.
Yeah, they offered. I remember them going, what if we just wrote it? And it was something I didn't want to ask of them because I felt like I was asking too much of them already by having to memorize an entire screenplay, and they still had to write and perform other pieces that they had to record prior to the movie, because obviously they're in the movie playing the cello, which means they have to record that music before we even shoot. And they had like a month to prepare for the film. So I felt I was already exploiting them to begin with, and to ask them to write a 6-minute from scratch, amazing, you know, Vivaldi Bach-esque cello finale climax sequence. I thought it was a little bit too much for them, but they were the ones that offered. So I said, yeah, sure.
We did not know how much work it was going to be.
But we kind of like locked ourselves in our house, and we had a couple of weeks to do it. So we just kind of read that 5 pages of Heist over and over and over and over, and just kind of went around the neighborhood and put headphones on and walked and sang out melodies, and just kind of came together and was like, what about this? What about that? And just play things at each other and say, no, that's not working. That is working. Eventually we ended up coming to like these certain themes that like start off the whole section with like 1 minute, and we'll talk to Warren, like, hey, how's this working for this one section? There's another section that's like an Achilles heel that Eli has a very lots of trouble playing throughout the movie that becomes a motif. And that had to be a super difficult part that was going to be very impressive for cellists. That was had to be hard to play. And he came up with something crazy for that, like something that shouldn't be possible, I don't think. And it puts your hand in such weird positions on the cello that are not trainable, I don't think.
Yeah, I have hand cramps.
I have hand cramps just thinking about it.
Hey, I haven't actually asked you both. Have you talked to any of your friends who play the cello that have seen? Has any cello players? Because cello players have talked to me about the film, saying this is basically the definitive cello movie they've ever seen. But have you talked to your cello friends about it yet?
Our cello teacher was at the Starlight.
Our
Oh,
teacher,
really?
the only teacher we've ever had.
She said that we had she said that our fingers were curved nicely.
She said, you guys are okay. I mean, it's definitely a strong C+ week.
She was like satisfied. Maybe for the sequel. Well,
No, but did she acknowledge the fact that it was a movie with cello music and the cellists were actually playing what was on screen? Or
she was really pleased about that.
Okay, good.
She was really happy with it.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah.
We haven't actually talked to a lot of our
Friends
who play cello though.
It's been a long time since we've been in the orchestral scene,
Right.
and in terms of even like playing with ensembles. But we should see what
Well, you better, because we're going to be doing one of these Zooms just specifically about the cello music. So get your friends to see it for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's one thing, Michael, that I think was interesting about this film was that, you not only have Max and Theo who have never acted before suddenly acting, but they were doing something that they've been doing all their lives, but in a completely different way. Because when they agreed to do the music composition, which was a separate conversation from actually acting in it, I basically said, however hard you think this will be, it will be 100 times harder. And it will be the hardest thing you've ever done in your entire life. Just be prepared for that. And sure enough, the shooting was hard, but when it came time to actually create the soundtrack to the movie's 90 minutes long. And there's probably 50 minutes of actual music in the movie. That's a lot of music. That's 50 some odd music cues that you were asked to write. And how did that feel when that was put in your lap?
Oh, we definitely just to put it out there on record, we did not time manage that completely properly, because I think there was at the end of August, shooting was done, and I think by January there was some rough cuts to look at, and then so that's when we had the conversations about what kind of music is going to be in the movie, what themes, what instrumentation, what even movies that you and Gary recommended for us to look at for the soundtrack. And so we did that, but that was at the time that we were studying engineering
McMaster.
like April, right? Full-time students. So not much work could even be like really done on there, and it became May, and we needed to have it done for June 7th. Actually, I remember specifically. And so that entire month of May, we did not go outside. Specifically, I remember that when we finished exams,
That's pre-quarantine too, eh?
Yeah, that was their quarantine.
And I remember, I think there's still snow on the ground, and then the next time we stepped foot outside, like the trees have bloomed, and we're like, no way, that's crazy. But we would get.
It's a perfect metaphor for this entire movie.
It's true, and we actually, I did a calculation on another one of the Zooms of how many hours I think we put into the ambient soundtrack. And I think there's about 50 cues. Each cue is around 2 minutes. And each minute of composition, when it comes to like composing and figuring out the instrumentation and then actually recording on the cello and mixing a little bit, sending to Byron, talking to Warren, talking to Gary about if it's working and what to tweak and adjustments, each minute's about an hour of work to put in. So that was like 100 hours of just straight composition and conversation, which was amazing. That was the coolest and quickest way to jump a learning curve for making a movie. But it's also like, you know, we would definitely now know what to do in the future even better, right? Because we started off that process knowing nothing. Nothing. Which is amazing. And Warren helped us so much along the way. And so did Byron. So did Gary.
It was nutty at the house there, Warren, when you made our.
It must have been like, that's the other thing is like they're doing this all in their family home, playing cellos basically 24/7. It must have been quite an experience for you and Alicia to have to either suffer through or experience. What's it like?
It was an experience. I mean, it was so cool to watch. And first of all, they were just so intense on it. And then be walking around, you could hear one of them humming something, and then it get louder. Bah, 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 bah. What is that? And then you hear it on the cello. And then you hear them talking back and forth, and sometimes yelling at each other back and forth. But it was a 24/7 thing. I mean, Max could basically stay up like you, Warren, for 24 hours. Theater has a time limit.
Yeah, but it's got an expiration date.
Yeah. But they're just, it's like all the time that you just hear them, this music, and then all these weird fragments and pieces, and then singing it and talking to each other all the time. And sometimes, you know, Alicia and I would feed them. And then something would happen. It was like, what? It was intense for myself and Alicia.
Well, it wasn't just cello either. I mean, the one thing, I mean, obviously the cello is such a central motif that plays through the entire film, literally. But they do all the electronic music, all the synth scoring, like every piece of music except for the songs that we use from like the Arkells and Jane's Party. And then the covers we did of July Talks, Guns and Ammunition, and then the title song, Things to Do for Money by the Northern Pikes, which is amazing that we were able to get. All the music was made by them, including, so the love theme, you know, the Laura's love theme where, not the one in the ice rink where that's lovely too, but the sort of pop song that plays when Theo puts on the headphones and walks around Hamilton at night. And it's the first sort of poppy song that plays in the whole movie. That's actually Theo's song, and he's singing on it. So, so he does everything.
Yeah.
Only because there's no one else that we can kind of like access to outsource to.
Yeah, so you're just like, we're just gonna do it. We have the wherewithal and to do it. It's cool to listen to, like, hear your guys' process though. It's just like, you know, walking and then a melody comes, and do you guys like write down notes, or do you guys know how to, or you just know how to play it on the cello automatically?
It's all in the head.
Like Jay-Z, man, no pen.
It's all up here. But it's also not because like we can, not because we can. It's too time consuming. We didn't have that many hours to even get it down.
And you would change things on the fly too, right? So
yeah,
it becomes obsolete after a while.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, every single piece of music was written without sheet music, which is kind of incredible. Even when they arranged other people's songs, you just did it by ear, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, the process of watching them do that is, to me, I find it fascinating because they're talking, and then they're very precise, and that's actually, I think that helped for their acting as well too. Because when they were rehearsing, it was like them rehearsing playing music when they're rehearsing the lines, because it was like, no, that one didn't feel right. That didn't feel right.
Right.
Go back to that. But not just seeing the whole thing. Oh, that felt nice. So they're very, very, very. Both of them are perfectionists. Actually, I was looking at that last video. Actually, they're both perfectionists. They both want it to be right, and they both put themselves on the line for that. But when they're talking, they're like giving instructions to each other. They're giving like little sounds to me like it's something really small, but they would other one would just lock in, and they would remember it for forever until the next time they changed it. It actually is a really fascinating process to watch.
Very cool. Hey, Ivan, do you have a question for us?
Well, actually, I mean, I'm really inspired, really, because I myself want to be like a filmmaker one day. I'm just doing short films, but like I can't possibly imagine the hard work and all the commitment to make a feature film. So, I mean, what do you recommend someone who wants to transition from short film to like doing film, feature film?
Well, I mean, the first thing is great for making short. How many short films have you made?
3 so far. I mean,
Oh,
one of them
fantastic.
is actually an actual short film. The other 2 are, yeah.
Right.
Not-
Were they made in Peru, or have you made them here in BC?
One, I made one in Peru, and I've made 2 in BC, actually.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I mean, the big thing about short films is, you have to. Oh, do you mind just muting yourself? I'm just getting a little bit
Sure.
too much. Yeah. The thing about short films is they're great ways to learn. I mean, you just have to be a director. And do you write the short films as well? Yeah. Okay. So to write and to direct, you need to actually write and direct. You have to actually write something and then go out and film it. Part of the whole process of Things I Do for Money is my co-writer Gary, who co-wrote the film with me. I've never been able to get one of our scripts, and we've written over a dozen scripts together, produced. So the learning curve for him on the feature was as great as everybody else, because he's never gone through that experience. But short films are good because you can literally go out on a weekend and make your short and then get it made. And there's so many festivals now that accept short films and promote and celebrate short films. But there's also a bit of a danger or the challenge of being a professional short filmmaker, which you're also talking to maybe the wrong person, because I've never made a short film before. I mean, I went.
Really?
Yeah, but I
Oh,
started
that's
in
more
music.
impressive.
I started in music videos, right? So
Oh.
I directed 167 music videos. So in essence, I had done 167 short films, and I had by the time I did my first feature, I had directed 100 music videos. So I wasn't walking into a feature film never being on a set before. I had been on 100 sets before. So much like my music videos, you have to go out and make your shorts to practice, to know how to work with actors, to know how to, what lenses are and how, what the best angles to get your scenes. But there comes a point in your career where you've made enough short films, you've accomplished everything you've wanted to accomplish, and you just have to go out and make your movie. And really, every director I've ever met can talk ourselves out of doing anything. And it's that voice you have to really not listen to. I mean, there were so many voices in my head, even outside Gary Nolan's voice of like, what are we doing? Why are we how are we going to do this? There were so many voices that kept popping off in my head as we were putting Things to Do for Money together, that had I listened to any single one of them, I would have never made the movie. I mean, on June 29th, when we decided to make this movie, 2018, we had zero money raised to make the movie. And we knew we had to go to camera in August because I was going to lose Max and Theo to McMaster University. So I had like a month to raise $100,000. And also, if I didn't, then I just wasted not only my summer, and I'm a television director, right? I could have gone out and directed and made that much money directing TV. But I wanted to sacrifice that time and dedicate it towards making this film. I would also waste Max and Theo's time, Ed's time, all the cast and crew. And that's a huge responsibility as a filmmaker. And when you accept that responsibility, you keep having these voices of like, don't do it. You're not ready. You're not experienced enough. But I'll tell you, the only way to get experience is by doing it. I mean, you can take as many classes as you want. Are you at UBC for film?
No, actually,
Sorry, you just muted yourself.
sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually at UBC for computer science.
Okay.
Due to family pressure, but on
Yeah,
my own,
that's
I'm
okay.
doing like projects and all that.
Right. No, hey, family, I get it. I mean, I went to film school because, yeah, my mom and dad just thought that that's the next thing is I go to university and I get a degree. But film is one of those industries where I've never been asked to show a diploma to get a job, right? It's like I get work because of the work I do. So yeah, make your short films, invest the time and effort in your own career, tell your stories. But at the end of the day, at some point, you're going to have to get a bunch of people and a cast and a crew to believe in a script that's like 100 pages long, and you got to go out and make it, because otherwise you'll be a really great short film director, but if your love is in the love of cinema and in feature filmmaking, you actually have to try to do that and not worry about success or failure. You just have to complete it, because just finishing the damn thing is what it's about. And I think both Max and Theo and Ed in this process can attest that we just had to finish this. That was the goal. Like I don't even think I had one conversation with you, Max and Theo, during this about how people are going to perceive the movie. All we talked about was the movie. That's the conversation. And
I don't even have time to think about that.
Yeah, right. Like just focus on the work. And if you do that, it's like cello playing. It's like you practice enough for muscle memory to happen, so that when you do it live in front of people, it's effortless. So yeah, I guess that's my advice to you, Ivan, is keep doing what you're doing, keep the work. I mean, you're studying computer IT, which is hard to begin with, but go out on weekends, make your short films. Obviously, we're in the middle of COVID, so you have to be careful, you have to be safe, you have to wear a mask, you have to wash your hands,
Yeah.
social distance. Write. Use this time to write. If you are a writer,
yeah, I'm using it a lot to write, actually.
and keep rewriting and write more than one script, because it won't be that script that gets made. I mean, Gary and I wrote, again, probably about 20 scripts together before Things I Do for Money was made. That's how many scripts you got to get through. And we needed to write all those scripts because we needed to get good. We wouldn't have been able to write Things I Do for Money first time out. It's too complicated of a script. There's just simply too many things going on in it. So that's my answer to you, man.
Well, thank you. Really, that was a really inspiring answer.
Cool, man.
I know it's not polite to talk about money, but it is polite to talk about Things I Do for Money. But
yes.
Not polite to talk about money. Warren,
yes.
Tell us, what was the budget for this film?
Well, the alternate title, Things I Do for Money, is called Things I Do for No Money, because the budget was $160,000, which to some people might sound like a lot, but for a film like this, especially with the 35 locations we had and the 50 some odd speaking parts and 6 cello performances and 5 action sequences, it was just a very ambitious project. And I knew going in it was going to be the most ambitious thing I ever tried to do. And to Ivan's point earlier about making short films and the career path and picking things to do, I couldn't have made this as my first movie. It'd be too damn hard. But what I did have was I had Max and Theo, and I believed in them. I believed in their talent. They showed to me and Gary that they had the dedication, and they also had the they just had the love and care that was needed to make something like this. So for the $160,000 we had, you could literally put another zero on, and that's how much money we made the movie for, in sweat equity, in passion, in just pure time, right? Like if Max and Theo wrote 50 cues of music in 1 month, they're working all day, every day, and if Ed's learning an entire language for a scene and to the point where like he has to get every syllable right, or else we're going to get called out by every single Japanese person out there. Which might happen when we talk to Yumi on our Vancouver Asian Film Festival Zoom that we're going to be doing tomorrow.
Get into that too.
Yeah, the pressure is sort of mitigated by the amount of, like, if everyone else is working that hard, then I'm good with working that hard. So the $160,000, the budget, like I say this to filmmakers all the time, don't be defined by your budget. The budget is just the budget because that's how much money you can raise. But you know, like I said, filmmakers can talk themselves out of anything. And a lot of times filmmakers will talk themselves out because the budget doesn't match what they think they need. They'll be like, this is really a $2.5 million movie, and they can only raise $1.2 million. So they won't make the movie. And my reaction is, well, if someone's giving you $1.2 million, take it, make the movie, and like let the chips fall where they may, like figure out a way, or else you'll never make anything. And you know, maybe if there's one thing to say about the arc of my career is I could have been a little bit more choosy, especially with my film, my feature film choices that I've made. But at the same time, I kind of had to make all 10 of those movies to then be able to make something like Things I Do for Money, which is just as a filmmaker, I look at and I'm like, there's not a lot of other directors that can actually do that. Most of them are my friends. Like there's probably 10 of my friends that could make a movie like that. But then from the Japanese Canadian perspective and from the Hamilton perspective, no one else could have made that movie. And as a filmmaker, and Ivan, you'll experience this too, is like, that's what you strive for. You want to make something that no one else could have made. And I think Max and Theo, you feel the same way, right? Like no one else could have been in this movie but you two.
Oh, it's true. And we weren't going to let Vivaldi store our starlight there. It's true.
Vivaldi can stay dead.
Nice.
Well, one of the things why I brought up the budget is that it must have allowed you guys like some sort of, because like, you know, that budget in like, you know, film language is like not a lot, but it did allow you guys some creative freedom, it seemed like, or a lot of creative freedom.
Oh, I wasn't reporting to anybody. Like when I was making a decision, I was reporting to a council of one. Now, having said that, I had great producers. I had Avi Fettergreen, Emily Andrews, Laura Norden, who was also the acting teacher for the boys, and Ed, and my wife, Jen Pogue. You know, I had a team, but they were just allowing me to make the decisions necessary to get the film done. So it's incredibly liberating. I mean, you know, I come from music videos that had clients and A&R executives and labels. I come from commercials where you have an agency, come from television where you have showrunners and networks. You're always sort of looking to someone saying, am I allowed to do this? Can I do this? And it's a great collaboration. Different set of muscles though you have to use politically to work in those environments. With this, it was like, I have a goal, I have certain things I want to accomplish, and I've been able to build the team out. It's like baseball. I was able to draft all the draft picks I wanted. I was able to pick the uniforms. I was able to make the batting order. And I put the team on the field that I created, come what may. And I run, you know, the rotations and everything. I don't know why I'm going on with this metaphor, but like, that's kind of the way we put this film together. And yeah, it's incredibly, at $160,000, if I had to report to someone, I would have never made the movie. I would have told them to fuck off.
Yeah, because somebody can give you like $60 million or whatever, but they said
$60 million, they can tell me what to do whenever they want.
Yeah, and then you have to like, they can be like, no people of color. You have to kind of like Robert Pattinson or somebody.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you have to take every note that they give you. And yeah, I mean, there are trade-offs, but because at $60 million, you get to do $60 million worth of stuff, right? But I think at the heart of this, like it was literally a family affair with the Aokis, and then my older brother Ron came on, and my wife was a producer. It was and you don't get that at $60 million.
And your mom-in-law was the bingo announcer.
Yes, we had many family members, especially in that bingo scene, show up, including my dad, who was lovely and awesome, and but also, like Ed, probably petrified acting for the first time on camera.
What was your inspiration behind the whole kind of Brenda subplot? Because Warren, I love the Brenda subplot, and like
I told Colette Zaka, who played Brenda, that you were a big fan, and she thanked you for that. But Gary and I knew that we wanted a crime element in Hamilton to be unique, and Brenda Mickle kind of fully formed, it's like older Black matriarch in a wheelchair. Boom, let's go. Let's create this character. And
sorry, you go ahead. But when you first see Brenda,
when
all your expectations.
When we first see Brenda, we wanted to show a grandmother in a wheelchair, and like, oh, isn't she sweet? And oh, isn't she, a nice person? And we slowly learn who she is in the sort of the world of the consortium in Hamilton and the crime families. But it's like the Mickle subplot. She owns vending machines. So the vending machine that Theo goes to as Eli is actually owned by Brenda Mickle. And when Laura, played by Yodit Tuaderos, says, "Oh my God, I hate these machines," we cut to a shot where between Theo and Yodit, there's a little Mickle logo. And she's saying, "I hate these machines," not because there's no chocolate bars in the machines. She's saying, "I hate these machines because this is my grandmother's machine, and I hate the fact that I have to deal with them because it's, for her, the consortium and her grandmother's pursuits are all bullshit. She doesn't like it." So Brenda was kind of a character that as soon as we made those decisions, those very unique decisions we wanted to do, she was a fully formed character.
And was that kind of one of the first kind of genre subverting expectations that you guys had in the script? And so you guys could, put in, the clown on the street, the old naked man running out of the pharmacy.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I think early on we knew we wanted to give the tone of a Fargo-esque Snatch, dark crime comedy kind of, and we knew Theo and Max were going to play it straight. Like they were going to be identifiable and empathetic characters that the audience can relate to. They were our way in, right? Everybody has sort of a relation, whether or not you have brothers or sisters, you have a friend that's like a brother or a sister, and that you know the dynamic between best friends or siblings and how that kind of works. But knowing that, we wanted to surround them with the most bizarre, surreal group of characters that you can think of, to the point where it's funny, the way we actually created it was, in the center of this was the Yaguchi family. It was Theo playing Eli and Max playing Nick, and then Tosh, played by Rhett Morita, and Mary, played by Jennifer Walton. That nucleus of the family was always going to be in the center, but radiating out, and the way we constructed it was radiating out from that center were more and more surreal and disparate pieces and characters of it that would play in counterpoint with that center. So at the very extreme, you would get someone like Alexi or Brenda, right? And they were on the same continuum. And interspersed with that, it's like, yeah, let's have a street clown be the viral agent within a scene to get Laura and Eli together. And Laura's very close to that center as well. She's kind of a high school student that has a specific dream of being an Olympic figure skater.
Going to band.
going to Banff for or Winnipeg for Olympic training.
Oh, was she going to Winnipeg? And you guys were going to Banff?
Yes,
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry.
And we just kind of started creating characters on that arc of like, well, where do they fit? Are they Alexi crazy, or are they, you know, street clown surreal? Are they bingo caller funny? Are they, you know, where do they fit on the lines of it?
So clowns like that just don't exist on the streets of Hamilton.
I haven't seen a street clown, although I've seen street buskers and you know, street citizens that would come up to you once in a while, especially.
Yeah, you would think Hamilton.
Usually they're on a motorized scooter, but.
Well, the thing about that scene too with the clown is it could happen in Hamilton.
It could, yeah. I mean, I think anything that happens in the movie kind of can happen in Hamilton and has happened in Hamilton. But we just put it all within a very truncated, you know, 3-day experience and 90-minute viewing of what can happen. So.
Yeah, I think we should go to some, you know, audience questions. Thank you, Ivan, for coming on and, you know, talking and showing us your beautiful face and asking your beautiful question. I think there was somebody else. I was maybe was Alyssa Lindsay was almost like, I think there was somebody that I saw who wasn't Ivan, who was
okay
on the chat, and I might have accidentally like rejected it. That was purposeful. That was just me being terrible with technology. So whoever was in this Zoom and I rejected you, I'm very sorry. If you're watching this, this is a space for all, and I am just bad at technology and I shouldn't be hosting this. So yes, I will read out some audience questions that we got.
Okay, sure.
Mr. Sonoda.
Uh-oh.
Have you ever been addressed in such a formal way?
Actually, yes. Max and Theo's first email to me was, "Dear Mr. Sonoda." That's how they addressed me.
That's
There
because
is-
that's why.
Actually, I so happen to actually have it here on Wednesday, February 17th, 2016 at 10:18 p.m. 10:18 p.m. Obviously, Max wrote this because Theo would have been sleeping by then. They wrote, "Dear Mr. Sonoda, Gary Nolan passed your contact information on to us. We have heard many great things about you. Perhaps we could meet at some point. Sincerely, Maximilian and Theodor Aoki."
And the rest is history.
And the rest
is man.
2016. Dear Mr. Sonoda.
Anyway, okay, yes, I didn't ask the question. Mr. Sonoda, what was your experience developing as a Canadian filmmaker in a US-dominated industry? Would you say LA is the place to go if you want to be in the business, or is Vancouver, you're not in Vancouver, but is Vancouver truly comparable as Hollywood North?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It's a question that I think many people have been wrestling with their entire career. I think as a filmmaker, you need to make decisions of what you want out of your life. You know, if you just want to make money, if you we're talking about things I do for money. If you want to approach film to be just about the money and the power and et cetera, then the choices you make will be sort of influenced by that. And many roads lead to LA. Not right now, because it's the coronavirus capital of the entire world, and so many of my friends are down there, and I'm concerned about their safety and their health, and I send so much health and positivity down there, and they're going to need it come November. But in terms of the film world, again, baseball, right? You're a young 20-year-old kid with a great fastball. You could throw in the upper 80s, maybe low 90s. You want to know how good you are. You want to pitch in Major League Baseball. You want to open for the Toronto Blue Jays or the New York Yankees or the LA Dodgers, and you want to know how good you are. You want to go up against the best bats out there. For filmmakers, you want to go to LA and see how you rank in the world. And I was fortunate to be able to go down for about 3 years and live down there. And I came back to Toronto because I love Toronto. I love Canada. My second home is actually in Halifax in the East. I love the East Coast as well. And I love Vancouver. I've been there many times for Directors Guild events and meetings, and I shot a MOW out there. Here's the thing is, you don't have to go anywhere. You can stay where you are. You just have to be okay with that decision. And it's okay to be a filmmaker in Toronto. It's okay to be a filmmaker in Regina or Saskatoon or St. John's. But if you know, her question's about power. It's like, well, what do you classify as power? Power for me is being able to write a movie, find 3 exceptional actors and composers to be in it, and then 5 months later, film it and not have to ask permission from anybody to do it. That's power for me. That the movie was $160,000 is relevant because I'm proud of the movie that we made. But if your perception of power is, yeah, the $60 million or $260 million tentpole Hollywood film, I probably won't be able to do that from Trinity Bellwoods in Toronto. I'd probably have to go down to LA, take some meetings, start to meet people. But then who knows who's going to see things I do for money? It just might pop up in someone's iTunes at the right time, and that person might be an executive looking for 2 young, you know, Asian cello playing protagonists, and they might cast Max and Theo. You don't make these movies to, like, I refute the idea of like, I do this, then I get to do this. I really think it's the work. I really think it just comes down to the work. And I don't think some people are able to calculate and be very strategic in what they do. And maybe my fault is I could have been a little bit more strategic in the choices I've made work-wise, but it wouldn't have, had I not done what I've done, it wouldn't have led me to this moment doing this film. So I really think that you can stay in Canada, tell stories, and when people tell, because I've been told, oh, you never, you know, you have to do this, do that, and I've constantly told them to fuck off. It's like, don't tell me that I can't do it, because it's like, there's my Guinness Book of World Records knocking Martin Scorsese out of the Guinness Book of World Records for the amount of expletives in a movie, right next to my 2 Emmy Award nominations, right? It's like, and like, I did all this without leaving. I did that. I did this here, and I'm proud of that, because this is my home.
That's so nice. I really loved that. A lot of the other audience questions were kind of in the similar vein. So
Okay. But here's the thing about Vancouver, and
yeah,
it's
Vancouver.
Yeah, so if it's specifically acting about Vancouver, is Vancouver and BC had made the decision to really get into service production, which is important. I mean, it's the driving industrial and economic part of the film industry, billions of dollars, like $9 billion Canada-wide, BC being a big part of that. It's bigger than the oil and gas industry. It's bigger than forestry. It's like, it's a huge economic driver, and service production is a big part of that. And Vancouver obviously is sort of, it is. To answer her question, Vancouver is Hollywood North. I mean, that's all the big major studios come up there, same time zone. It's, it's a 1 hour, 1.5 hour flight to LA. But the other part of that is you have such a vibrant, robust, independent scene. I mean, listen, the movie that won the CSA this year, The Body Remembers When the World Broke Open, was Kathleen Hepburn and Elamaya Tailfeathers from Vancouver, from BC. Joel Ashton McCarthy, and This Is a Spoon production company, doing amazing stuff. Like, I think the vanguard, the people doing really, really interesting work are from the coasts. They're the people in Vancouver, they're the people in Halifax. They're doing incredibly innovative, unique stuff, but they need more. They need more support. They need more oxygen. They need more resources to be able to continue down this path. And it's something where Telefilm needs to support more BC productions. The community, the industry needs to give more resources to the independent film scene in especially Vancouver, but in BC itself. And a lot of that is policy, a lot of that's advocacy, and groups like Creative BC, the Directors Guild of Canada, BC, they're fighting very hard to get more and more resources for the filmmakers you have there. I refute the fact that you have to leave Vancouver to be able to work in Vancouver. I think there's going to be a time where our Vancouver directors will be working on the shows shooting in Vancouver, even if they're American shows. It's just those American showrunners and gatekeepers need to know who our talent is. And that's changing. That's starting to change.
Thank you for that. I also just want to acknowledge that all of the criminals in your film are from BC.
No, it's Brenda, the Mickle family are very much a Hamilton family, but
okay, yes.
Just Jimmy. Something went down in Vancouver 10 years ago that drove the Yaguchis out to Hamilton. Just Jimmy was able to stay for some reason. We don't know why. Ed, do you know why you were able to stay? Like, what was the backstory in your head? Because I've always wondered what you prepared for Just Jimmy.
I always thought that Just Jimmy stayed in Vancouver because he's the eldest son,
right,
of a Japanese Canadian family, and that's the weight that he could not throw off. And in a way, he kind of resented Tosh for being able to do that, and that's why the anger, that's why the bitterness, but also that's why he understood as well too. Right. That's what I thought in my head, and I just thought again about the Japanese Canadian families that I know, and the weight that's put onto the eldest son.
Right. You probably stayed where the mom was, like the grandmother to Eli and Nick. The grandfather probably already passed away, but you stayed in Vancouver to look after her and also whatever the family business was.
Whatever the family business, whatever their connections the family had made, then that would be the eldest sons. To me, that's what I had in my head, the responsibility and the burden. So right. I saw it as he sort of lived the burden. That's the way I saw it.
But Michael, to your point, yes. So Just Jimmy is from Vancouver, but Banff and the West Coast also represents the idealized dream.
Oh yes.
For Eli and Nick Yaguchi, and we have that one shot of the car at the end going towards what we hope people would think is the Rocky Mountains, but we shot that in Ancaster, Ontario. That has no mountains anywhere near it. But the West is supposed to represent an idea or an ideal that doesn't exist for Eli and Nick until they can go out there.
Banff is in Alberta, everyone, as well.
Yes. Banff is in Alberta, but
anyway, but still, West Coast, West side of the country. We're all in this together.
It's on the east side of the Rockies, which also borders BC.
Okay. Do you have any advice on how not to get taken advantage of when you're starting out as an indie filmmaker?
Definitely don't say yes to compose and act in a low-budget independent movie. Never say yes to that.
Yeah, sorry, Max.
We took advantage of ourselves too there, for sure.
Well, I mean, maybe that's a good question for Max and Theo in terms of like, what were you willing to, like, what in your concept or perception, what's being taken advantage of?
Oh, nothing. The reason that we play cello together is to share it with people, and we have our audience, and we have kind of like just naturally began growing and people that are interested in what we're doing, and we get to share that with people, and we get to hear this is how your music affects us. And so if Warren comes up to us and Gary comes up to us and says, we have an idea for an entire feature film, and this is our plan. Like they're prepared, they're professionals, they're very experienced, they're very confident. Then we just know that we're going to be giving our best of what we love to do, which is perform music and share it with other people and contribute to a project that evidently is coming from a place of love from them too.
I guess the only caveat is that, you know, me and Max aren't depending on the music and like the filmmaking for like ourselves. Like since we're in engineering students, like we're okay just absolutely spending months on these projects because it's like what gives us joy. What, you know, it's a good distraction from engineering.
Yeah, that's a good
Because
plan.
they're gonna make a lot of money being engineers. Let me tell you, Michael Day. But I think they hit on the point, which might answer this question, is you got to find projects that have a lot of love and sort of coming from the right place. It's funny. I just responded to a tweet that a friend of mine put up saying, why are we celebrating all these projects that are made for no money? You know, we shouldn't be, kind of the gist of it is we shouldn't be enabling that. We should be getting money for these projects to be made. And my response was, you know, making a movie, regardless of budget, is a minor miracle every time you go out and do it. And especially making a micro budget movie is an actual choice, right? No one is making anyone to go out and make a movie, right? Like no one, I didn't get pressured into making this. I put the pressure on myself. And sometimes making something is not about money. And unfortunately, you can't make a movie alone. So then I rely on other people to come on board. And for our main cast and crew who did things to do for money, we were able to pay them $100 a day, which is nothing. It's an honorarium, basically. But what that signified was because our budget was $160,000, it actually amounted to a lot of our disposable money that we had. So what we were saying is, we will be partners in this. We will participate in this. And if you believe in it enough, then you'll get something valuable out of it. Obviously with Max and Theo, and Ed, their first credited movie, Max and Theo first credited composing of a feature film. And I've seen a lot of arguments about, you know, and maybe this is what the question is talking about, being taken advantage of, like, you know, great exposure, you're going to get a credit on IMDb, you're, you know, And if you don't want to accept that job that pays nothing and it's just for exposure, then don't accept it. And certainly there are charlatans and bad people in the movie industry. I mean, it's the movie industry, and people that will take advantage of other people. And you just have to be aware of that. But every once in a while, there'll be projects that if you meet the people doing it and you're a fairly decent judge of character, like Max and Theo were, and their mom Alicia, when we met them at the Starbucks pitching them the movie, they sized up me and Gary and they said, okay, we're going to trust you guys. So, you know, just be careful when you're working in film, because yeah, you get taken advantage of all the time. And certainly if you're doing something like in BC, you do a lot of television shows. It's like you should be paid television money for doing those television shows. Yeah. But if Michael Dang wants to go out and make his, or Ivan Matos wants to go out and make their passion project feature film, and you get a call from them, then that's where you have to make your choice and make your decision. If what you want is to do good work, then the decision is pretty easy.
Okay, I like that answer a lot. Thank you for giving me the inspiration to go out and make my passion project. Another person asks, oh, actually, there's somebody in our YouTube chat right now, Robert Walker, who said, hey, Theo and Max, nice job on the movie. Loved the soundtrack. And do we have news on the soundtrack? We're not announcing that yet. Oh, shit.
Oh, we can announce it, yeah.
Oh, yeah, shit. I'm so sorry. I thought I like spilled the beans on something.
No, I mean, obviously there's gonna be a soundtrack.
Confirmation exclusive. Okay.
It's like making a Jurassic Park movie and not having little plastic dinosaurs being made, you know?
What made you want to pursue film as a career?
No, Max and Theo, talk about the soundtrack.
Oh yeah.
We were just talking about it in the preamble.
Shout out Robert Walker.
Yeah, thank you, Robert.
A real
Awesome.
one.
Hope you liked it. Yeah, when is the soundtrack going to be available? Actually, Warren, this might be a better question for you. I'm not too sure. Where the soundtrack
in the fall or winter, we're going to release a soundtrack and a DVD. But with the soundtrack, you can talk about how much work you've been putting into it and working with Byron.
Oh, absolutely. Because from day one, we got brought onto the project because we play music. We love playing music. And it's just such a big part of film too. So doing 50 tracks, I think 50 plus tracks, including 6 that were part of the live action narrative of the screenplay, was I'm going to tie this into the idea of like doing a project because you're passionate about it too. That's like it's even though Warren told us at the very beginning, as like, this is going to be more work than you've ever done in your lives. Like, this is going to be hours and hours and hours. You're going to sweat. There's going to be tears for
Actually,
sure.
Ed's the sweater. He's the one that sweats in the family. I can attest to that. The escarpment chase sequence, Ed probably lost about 20 pounds of body water in that sequence. So
I think even in that car scene there, Warren.
Right. Sorry, Max, I was interrupting just because I heard the word sweat and I thought of Ed.
No worries. But then it's like, maybe someone would hear like in that kind of sentence, like, oh, you're gonna have to make 50 cues of music. But that's just whenever we get back home from engineering and we need a little break and we need a little relaxation, we're just gonna go right to the piano, right to the guitar, right to the drum set, right to the cello, and just start making music just for the fun of it. So that was someone telling us like, hey, you get to do 50 pieces for a project.
Yeah,
and
joke's on you. You got exploited.
we actually got a lot more out of it.
and the soundtrack is called, it won't be 50 cues on the soundtrack, but it's going to be culled down to like a dozen or so of the cues that Max and Theo have picked from the film. Not just cello, but some of the electronic music and everything. And I really think Monument, which is what they call the finale piece, I actually think that's going to become a double cello classic. Like, I don't think there's a lot of double cello music out there, especially as dynamic as this piece. In Whistler, we got Cheers in Lafayette, Louisiana. They performed it. They got a standing ovation. It's the type of song for 2 cellos that I think if you're in a 2 cello group, you're going to want to play this thing, right? So
I can't wait to hopefully see the next YouTube video that comes out of a different 2 cellists playing that.
Right.
Just to see.
Someone covering you. That'd be cool.
Oh, that would be so cool.
They're gonna play it better. They're gonna play.
They're gonna play it better,
and then we're gonna be sad.
Yeah, Warren, don't watch these people. Don't watch them.
Right. Wait, are they 2? Chinese brothers that live in. They're hired.
They could be. And actually, yeah, even in the soundtrack too, we have a lot of we kind of call it down to the 14 or 15 top tracks that really kind of drive the movie forward. There's some character themes in there. So just Jimmy theme, the Alexis theme and his arc that goes through. The theme that happens usually most times that Brenda comes around and there's some evilness going on. The brothers theme for the younger generation, the older generation. So it's super exciting to be able to get that soundtrack out.
Well, and also one thing that they were able to do throughout the film is take these discrete themes and then fuse them together. I mean, even in the end credits, when we were fortunate enough to do a cover of Things to Do for Money by the Northern Pikes, which was a big hit back in the late 80s, Max and Theo were able to put a little bit of the Things to Do for Money theme between some of the verses. And I remember Jay Semko going, yeah, I love the cover. I think it's great. It's really interesting, the arrangement. I think he was kind of, and we're going to do a Zoom with Jay at some point, and I'm going to ask him what he, did he know that there was a little bit of that theme that was running through?
Yeah, we had fun with that.
So yeah, the soundtrack will be definitely a big thing that we'll be putting out there.
So yeah, I think we are, because we only plan to do like about like an hour and a half, and we're about, but we still have some like more questions. So do you want to just like go through some of them?
Well, let's do one more. I think Theo. I'm listening to Theo's voice, and I know him quite well. He's going to turn into a pumpkin in about 10 minutes because it's 11:38 here in Ontario.
Yeah, how is it
And-
brighter? You guys
which is 8 minutes over his bedtime at least.
I just
Oh,
had a
but-
quick question. What is the competition for the quintessential cello movie? What is your
Oh
guys'
yeah.
competition? I can't
Oh,
think-
Netflix had. Remember, you boys saw a
Oh.
Netflix movie?
Oh god. Yeah. There's a horror movie out
Oh,
with these two cellists.
okay.
I can't remember what it's called. The
It's
the-
best. It's best you don't say the name. Maybe.
Yeah. So things I do for money automatically wins. Okay, great.
Well, but the problem with the movie is well, there's it's problematic, but the cello playing is one of those, the actors sit down, they put the cello, they put up the bow, they might start the movement, and then you cut to the hand double playing the cello part. And even then, the cello part's not that great. It's just the one thing.
And maybe. Like,
Yeah, the one thing on this film is everything played on the cello is played by Max and Theo.
Yeah, you're not naming that movie, but movie. Okay. This is actually a question that I think everyone can answer. Ed as a painter, and Max and Theo as cellists, and Warren. How do you face failure as an artist? This might get therapeutic in a second, and not let it impede on your work. And what advice would you give to a smart, creative college student entering the real world of entertainment? And what advice should they ignore?
Ed?
I think you have to ask yourself how you measure failure. If for me it's failure because someone didn't like it, then you're making their paintings. I think that you have to have basically its integrity, and to me, one phrase I always have in my head is everything's training. So it's not really failure. It sounds cliche, but it's like, okay, what can I pull out of this, right? But if you treat it as failure, then it will be failure. That's my short answer to it.
Yo, I love that.
Max and Theo?
I'll speak on the music for sure, because like any monument, right, which ended up to be one of those like major kind of pieces we've ever composed, one of our first original compositions that we now love, and kind of as part of like identity as cellists. The first iteration sucked. Oh, it was just bad. It was gross. It was disgusting.
It wasn't that bad. It just wasn't fully formed yet.
No, we played it in our living room. We're like, what did we just do? We just waited 4 hours. So then, right, scratch it, go back, and then like you want, like, I wouldn't want to go and compose a piece of music, even if it was for us playing cello, or us one of the ambient pieces, and try our very best so that it gets by without any notes, or that like it becomes passable enough that people say like, okay, great, and then it moves through, because then you're not learning anything, and it's not developing, and it's not reaching its greatest potential. So the best parts of the soundtrack that we had fun with, and also was that time period of May, was when we'd make something and we'd say like, what do you think? What do I think? A couple runs through, send it to Warren, send it to Gary. What do they think? Notes. We talk about it. Talk about it with our family, and then we do a couple and it's a whole process, and then it becomes something really cool at the end. That's what I'd say about that. Yeah. So I would personally hope to experience it sooner rather than later, and then learn from it and improve on it.
I think I don't know. We and Max have very similar perspectives, because we, Max and our father, have very similar perspectives. We kind of like all have that mind meld going on around here in the Aoki household. But my personal take is that I think there's no greater feeling than when you look back on your old work and you're like, wow, I can tell why this is a failure now. It's like, wow, now I'm a genius. So it's all just a matter of like realizing that you're a fool, and that eventually you'll be able to figure out why you're failing.
Everybody's fools though.
Everybody's a fool though. So it's all great. It's all groovy.
Michael, this is actually a great question to end on, because it's a really astute question, and it's yeah. Do you know the person asking it?
Yes. Actually,
Are they a filmmaker, or are they a UBC student, or?
yes, they're a UBC student. Actually, I know this. This is Mandy, who's part of our exec team. So yeah.
Oh, excellent. Can you repeat the question one more time? Because I think it deserves the.
When you started out, how did you face failure as an artist and not let it impede on your work? What advice would you give to a smart, creative college student entering the real world in entertainment, and what advice should they ignore?
Right. So the biggest thing to realize is failure is not an impediment; it's an accelerant, and you actively have to build failure into your process, because without failure, you don't get innovation, you don't get curiosity, you don't get the striving to be better at something. You just get the status quo. You get complacent, and every time I've got to that next level of whatever my career is, it's because I went through a series of either failures or complacency, and I got too comfortable doing something, and I needed to do something else. And in that need to do something else, it's the setup for failure. It's like the project I did before Things I Do for Money, the summer before. So this would be the summer of 2017. I took the summer off, and me and my wife put on a Fringe Festival play that I wrote and directed. So for the Toronto Fringe Fest. And for context, I turned down episodic TV work and a bunch of different gigs to take the summer off and lose $7,000 to put on a play, right, for community theater. It was the best experience of my life up to that point creatively. It was something that me and my wife, Jen Pogue, were able to kind of create together and put together as a team. And it was the beginning of the idea of like doing our own stuff. And it certainly set myself up for the next summer of 2018 to do Things I Do for Money. But I could have easily failed doing that. And with Things I Do for Money, and I've said this a couple times in interviews, it's like, I never got a call from someone going, Warren, I need you to make a Japanese Canadian cello playing brother movie set in Hamilton, playing Hamilton. I need you to make this movie right now. Like, no one asked me to do this. And even in my relationship with Gary, no one asked me. Gary and I never really thought this is exactly the type of movie we need to make. In fact, every time I would pitch it, I would either get quizzical looks or like people going, why do you want to do this? Why don't, and in some of the what do you call it? Reviews that we've gotten, they've critiqued how busy the plot is. And it would have been a better movie if we just centered around the brothers in the music world. And yes, maybe that might be more of a conventional movie that people can understand and can relate to. But there's something to be said about swinging broadly and strongly. Again, this is a baseball metaphor, at the pitch being sent to you.
Are you watching like a lot of MLB these days?
I'm all about the Raptors right now, man. It's like, that's all I care about. It's like, we got to play Brooklyn tomorrow. We got to sweep them, knock on wood, we're on a good run. But the ability to fail was every step of the way. If Ed didn't say yes, we could have failed. If Rhett Morita didn't come out of my past and offer to audition for Tosh, we could have failed. If the boys, could play the cello but they couldn't act, we could have failed. Every step of the way, if we only got 30 out of the 35 locations, we could have failed. You got to actually embrace the propensity to fail as part of any success you have, because there is no success if it's easy. Then what is that? That's something that just happens. And I think that's the whole Vivaldi thing. It's like, yeah, we could have used Vivaldi, but that's the easy way. That's the path of least resistance. And if if I'm answering the question that was asked about, what's the advice to any artists coming up, is embrace it, fail often, fail magnificently. I failed Ryerson Film School, twice, spectacularly. The last semester I failed every single subject I took, and I never let failure be the final verdict on my film career. Even though my mom and dad probably didn't like the fact I didn't complete my degree, years later, I got an honorary degree. It's like, just lean into it and don't do anything safe. Just try to challenge yourself each time you go out.
Would you say, Warren, that in creativity or creative activity, you would redefine failure as risk?
As risk, it's risk. There's nothing. There's actually no failure. I mean, there's quantifiable failure, like, Ed, when you give a test and someone gets 20%, that's a fail, right? But that's a hypothetical classroom situation. That's not the real world. Like, the real world's not a zeros and ones. Like, the real world is organic. There's levels, there's texture, and especially in the artistic world, it's all subjective. So yeah, it's risk. It's taking risks and managing risk. Like, sometimes it's best that you don't take that risk just to get to that next thing that you need. Like, if I went into things I do for money and didn't care about anything, that's not responsible either, right? Like, I wouldn't want to take that risk. I was comfortable taking a certain level of risk on things I do for money, and some of it was financial, some of it was time management, some of it was just trusting the unknown, especially with actors and crew that might have not made a movie before. But it was all calculated risk. Some people are going to watch the movie and hate it, and to them that's a failure. But I don't care. I really don't. I don't make movies anymore worrying about how people are going to receive it, except this movie I made for my brothers, so I really hope my brothers liked it and they loved it. So I don't care what anybody else thinks. I care what Max and Theo and Ed think, and the team, and we're all very proud of being able to put this thing together.
Warren, I gotta say too, I gotta jump in there real quick, because it just worked in so perfectly that in the script that you wrote, there's that whole idea of, like, they're talking to each other, Eli and Nick, in the hallway, tying their ties, and it says, let's just play a little Bach, a little Vivaldi, we'll get out of there. Yeah. And that would be the easy route, right? That would be the non-risk route. And then you're at the actual concert, and then, Venito's there. And then so then one brother will be better and says, we have to play the original, like the one we wrote. And the other brother says, what? I'm not ready.
I'm not ready, yeah.
But you gotta take the risk.
Yeah.
I like that.
And Max actually came up with that scene on the day he came up with the line, "You want Banff? Banff is sitting right there."
I did in fact do that. I'm pretty sure I read something.
That's a great line, Max. Wow.
It's a wonderful line, and it sums up the entire brother sort of story of at the beginning it's Eli that really wants this one thing. And then at the end, it's his brother Nick going, "You said you wanted this. We're here now. Don't just go. Let's do this thing." And that's what the Achilles heel was supposed to be. Is they can't perform this to perfection until the brothers reconciled their differences and got together on the same page. I mean, that's the whole movie. It's the very first scene when the two brothers are out in daylight. Their line is, "Come on, keep up," and that's thematically their story. It's hey, keep up with me. And then finally, Max, Nick Niuchi catches up with where Eli is, and then ascends, and then he says, "You keep up with me." And it's the telling of the brother story that way that is I wrote it for my brothers, Rod and Bob. It's like that's the touchstone.
Okay, Thank you so much, Warren. That seems to be all the time we've had. I realized we started streaming like 108 minutes ago. So at the start of our interview could have rented Things I Do for Money, watched it all the way through, probably like taken a bath or something, and then probably like sleeping in bed, all that stuff.
Well, it's a great conversation.
Everybody for tuning into this interview on YouTube.
Yes, Ivan, thanks for coming in and hanging out with us. Appreciate that.
Ivan,
Yeah, no problem. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
go Peru.
Yeah, go Peru.
Go Peru. If you haven't already, everyone please rent Things I Do for Money on iTunes, Telus, Shaw, Cineplex, all the video on demand services you can think of. Thank you to everyone who registered, asked questions, who was watching this on YouTube. You can find us at UBC Film Society on Instagram and Facebook.
Yes.
Norm Select Series and the UBC Film Soc will be hosting a whole ton of really cool virtual events just like this through the fall, such as interviews and panels throughout the fall. Thank you so much, Warren and Max and Theo and Ed, for graciously lending 2 hours of your time, like cutting into like the morning over there, just to, you know, talk to us on the West Coast about.
We got to toughen Theo up. He's got to make it to midnight.
Theo, have great dreams. Have a good.
He's already losing color in his face. Like, Max is this night that's very healthy, sort of rosy, and Theo, go to sleep now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Be safe, everyone. And
all right.
Cheers.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Okay. Stop recording. Bye, friends.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you so much. It's amazing.
Yes. Thank you guys for coming and saying time and all that great stuff. Okay. Bye.
Soon, for sure.